beautiful people, to the Real Collective podcast. As always, I'm Sean Tasse, joined by my illustrious and ever knowledgeable co-host Kyle Miller. Kyle, how you doing today?
Oh, loving the fall, loving the sunshine in the fall.
Yeah,
It's
man.
good.
The I know this is not a weather update channel, but we're looking like almost plus 20 for like the next 5, 6 days. So it's gonna be pretty nice.
This is the most awkward time of the year for trying to get dressed. Like
Yep.
my daughter's daughter's just like, what do I wear today? I'm like, I don't know, a snowsuit in the morning, and then make sure you got shorts in your bag for the afternoon. Like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
we're gonna swing 22 degrees today,
Yeah.
so it's wild.
I
Yeah.
that's I same thing with my kids this morning. They're like, oh, I want to wear a jacket. I'm like, no, wear a fall jacket and gloves and a hat. What? Yes.
Yeah.
And one kid's like, I'm not even wearing a jacket. I'm like, live your best life.
Yeah.
Whatever, you
Yeah.
know?
Wear a shirt underneath, you'll be fine.
Yeah, exactly. As always, guys, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, share this with someone who you think might like this conversation. You can also download the Calendly links below to book an appointment with Kyle or I. If you're watching on YouTube, thanks very much for your eyes. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, thank you very much for your ears. I suppose on YouTube, also thank you for your ears. We'll get into a little conversation about Magic Mind later on as we go. Always remember the code is found in the description below, magicmind.com/RCP20. And that code, I'll tell you a little bit more about it, but the code gets you Magic Mind shots for less than $4 per shot, cheaper than an energy drink, and more efficient as a productivity shot. We're
That
gonna get,
is actually a good price. That's wild,
yeah, yeah.
honestly.
I
Like
never
I
did the math on it. Someone asked me about it. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. Here's actually what it is. It's yeah, pretty awesome. Mental performance shot. So we'll talk
yeah.
about it more in a sec. But yeah, I wanted to talk about a few things today. I just did a course yesterday called the Quantum Leap, which was a great show back in the day. Name that actor.
That's right. Uh Kevin.
Yep,
No, was it?
I thought it was. No,
Well, I wanted to say Kevin Sorbo, but that's not him. He was playing Hercules or He-Man or something.
all right,
It
I thought it
was
was.
I can't remember, but I remember that show. It was a great show.
It was, yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyways, this course, this quantum leap course, the whole idea is, it was really like a mindset thing. It's take your business to the next level. I was talking with another young fellow who wants to get into the real estate business, and I said, look, you just need to treat your real estate business like you're the CEO of your company. So, what are the most important things that you need to do? So they dropped this at the beginning of the course. They dropped this sort of knowledge piece on us. They talked about the different types of salespeople, and they said there's 5 different types of salespeople. I'll just whip them out to you real quick here. You've got relationship builders, you've got hard workers, lone wolves, reactive problem solvers, and challengers. If you break it down, this is a Harvard. They did a study on like Harvard School of whatever. They did a study on this whole thing. The Sales Executive Council of Harvard University launched a global study of sales reps productivity 3 years ago. Over 6,000 reps, nearly 100 companies in multiple industries. So they broke it down to these 5 people. Relationship builders focus on developing strong personal and professional relationships among their clients and customers, generous with their time, strive to meet their clients' every need, work hard to resolve tensions in the relationships, right? People say, hey, who's a relationship builder? 50% of the class raised their hand up, right? Hard workers show up early, stay late, always go the extra mile, make more calls in an hour, and conduct more visits in a week than just about anybody. Lone wolves are the deeply self-confident, rule-breaking cowboys of the sales force who do things their way or not at all. If you look at like the new kids like Gen Z are talking about, that's like a Sigma, I think, is the personality type of a lone wolf. I don't know. There's like an alpha, beta. There's a sigma. I think that's what it is. I haven't been watching enough social media. There's also reactive problem solvers and are, from their customer's standpoint, highly reliable and detail-oriented. They focus on post-sale follow-up, ensuring the service issues related to the implementation and execution are addressed quickly and thoroughly. So as far as the consumer sees, hey, if you are a reactive problem solver, hey, I'm on it, I got it, right? And then the last one's the challengers. They use their deep understanding of their customers to push their thinking and take control of the sales conversation, not afraid to share even potentially controversial views, and are assertive with their customers and clients. So people said, hey, who's this? More than 50% of people are like, yeah, I'm a relationship builder, right? I put my hand up. I said, "Yeah, I'm a relationship builder. That's what I do. I build my whole business on relationships that I have with clients." And so then they said, "Hey, who do you think is the most successful out of these five?" And of course, everybody thinks it's relationship builders, right? It turns out it's not, right?
Who is it?
Right. So what do you think out of these five? Relationship builders, hard workers, lone wolves, reactive problem solvers, and challengers.
Well, who's the one that makes more phone calls? The hard workers?
Hard workers, yeah.
There's a part of me that says it's going to be that because it's a numbers game. So
Yeah.
if you make more calls, if you make more calls than anybody else, you're just mathematically going to win.
Yeah.
So like and you have to have a piece of all of those five,
Yeah.
but I kind of think it could just be the hard worker at the end of the day to yes, that's what I'm going with.
Good. All right. Good answer. Good answer. So if there was a room of, I don't know, 30 of us, I'd say 15 people put up their hand and said I'm a relationship builder, and I'd say of the other four, it was like, I don't know, whatever that is, two or three, right, for each other category. People said, yeah, this is me. I don't think anybody was really a hard worker because they were all like, yeah, I just, I build my business on relationships, so repeat and referral is what I get, and that's it. So it turns out that the most successful style of salesperson is the challenger. The challengers directly outperform other profiles, particularly relationship builders. Right? So when we look at the average,
nice guys finish last.
right, of course, we find a fairly even distribution across all five of the profiles. But while there may be five ways to be average, there's only one way to be a star. We found the challenger reps dominate the high performer population, making up close to 40% of the star reps of in the study. So it's like the average salespeople, and they are everybody, but the stars tend to be the challengers. The challengers teach their customers. They focus on the sales conversation, not on features and benefits, but on insight, bringing a new, unique and particularly provocative perspective to the customers. They come to the table with new ideas for their customers, make them money or save the money, often opportunities the customer hadn't even realized existed. So the challengers tailor their sales messages to the customer, finely tuned sense of individual customer objectives, value drivers, use this knowledge to effectively position their sales pitch to different types of customers. Challengers take control of the sale. And I think this is a big thing for us. And I'll talk about how this impacts us. Not aggressive, they're certainly assertive, right? They're comfortable with tension, unlikely to acquiesce to every customer demand. But when necessary, they can press customers a bit, not just in terms of the thinking, but around things like price. And just as surprising it is, the challengers win, almost more eye-opening. Who loses? The relationship builders come in dead last, accounting for only 7% of all high performers. So for me, that really comes down to this conversation about pricing a home, right? And so often a seller says to us, hey, we want to price our house at this point, da 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 da. A challenger is going to say, look, sure, you can do that, but here's what's going to happen. They're willing to have those hard conversations with their clients, whereas a relationship builder, like, yep, your house, you can price it whatever you want, right? And what ultimately happens, the house doesn't sell unless it's priced for the price that someone's like, oh shit, I don't want to tell you this, but I have to tell it to you, right? That's the doctor, right? You go into the doctor's like, yeah, we did a checkup on you, and yeah, everything's fine, right? When in reality, you've got fucking some terrible disease, and the doctor's like, I don't want to tell you this. No, thank you.
Yeah.
I want to build a
relationship. It's uncomfortable.
Right, exactly. So it's like, the more comfortable you can get having these uncomfortable conversations is key. So that was really eye-opening for me. And then, I put up my hand. I'm like, yeah, I'm a relationship builder. And then after I heard the results, I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm actually a challenger.
Yeah. Some of it's even just perception, right? You're like, and again, as much as this is Harvard and whatnot, I'm sure you can see yourself in every single one of those.
Yes.
Every single one of those. Like you're just a giant Venn diagram at the end of the day, right? So you can see yourself in every one of those. And I think salespeople have to be every one of those at some point, right? Yeah. In their day, in their career, because that's the way this stuff works, right?
I think a lot of the times that people come off as challengers sometimes are seen as like aggressive. Like sometimes if they're being assertive, they're seen as aggressive. Like the conversation I had with my client, whatever it was, yesterday, we had his place listed for $450, and oh, someone might be a buyer for it come November, which is like 2 weeks away at the earliest. And I'm like, so what do you want to do? He's like, I guess we're just waiting for this one person who might be a buyer in 2 weeks. I'm like, okay, but what if they don't? If they turn out and they say, oh yeah, you know what, we changed our mind, we don't want to do it. I said, at that point, we're 2 weeks further along, and I'm going to be having the conversation with you like, hey, we've got to reduce the price, right? And so we had a conversation. I said, well, what are we going to reduce the price to? You've got an appraisal for 430. What are we going to reduce it to 430? I don't know if that's going to cut it. By that time it's November, we're getting close to the end of the year. I'm going to be asking you to bring it down to 399. He's like, oh, I'm like, so why don't we just do that now? He's like, well, we're selling the place. We're not putting it up for fun. We got to sell it. So let's sell it. But you know what, Sean? Why don't we split the difference? Instead of 399 and 430, why don't we go 415? I said, you know what? You go 415. People are going to read into that. You know exactly what they're going to read into it. I'll take four, right? You're listed at 415. Would you take four for it? Well, yeah. I said, if you take four, list it for four. List it for 3,999. Get that whole new group of people in and get in to see it. And he's like, fine, right? But it's like challenging that thing where I think a lot of people, if they were the relationship builder, they would say, okay, 415, right? As opposed to pushing the client to do what they need to do, even though it's a thing that nobody wants to just give away an extra $15,000. But the thing is, it might sell now for 410, right? In multiple offers. Whereas if you put it at 415, you might only sell it for four. So it's like, that's the whole thing. It's pricing right now is so important. Like between now and the end of the year.
Yeah, we talk about that all the time, right?
Yeah.
We talk about that all the time. And it's just, it might be anecdotally, but we're seeing it in the market at the same time, right? Is that the houses priced right are selling. Anything that's sitting for a long period of time, right, has not been priced correctly, and you're chasing that curve on the way down.
Yeah.
Right. In my mind, that's what you're paying. That's what you're paying for when you're selling, and you get an agent. You're selling for for as much of that accuracy as you can.
Yeah.
I have a client right now. They like, and this ties into a bunch of stuff, but when he started his journey in like April, right? He unfortunately is in a situation where he has to sell his house.
Yeah.
Right. And he's got someone in his ear who's a commercial real estate broker in Toronto. And that commercial guy was like, that place is worth 1.8. And the agent he's working with is like, no way is that worth 1 point. Not even possible. And he's like, well, that's what he said, and he understands. She's like, he doesn't understand anything. I'm sorry, right? They fought their way down, and they listed at 1.3, and she's like, it's still not worth 1.3. I'm telling you that right now. I'll do it, but I'm going to tell you it is not worth 1.3. And then they finally got it to around 1.2, where she's like, there, now we're in the game. Let's see what happens here. And it's taken that much time and effort and chasing and just not believing in your people. Like, and it hurts.
You know what the really sad and scary thing is the market totally changes. It's like a dead market between 1 million and 1.2, unless you've got an absolute stunner of a property. If you put it up to 1.2, it's you might have to get to 999. And that's, I don't know the house. I have no idea what property you're talking about. All I know is what I've seen over the last, probably over the summer and fall, is that there's like a dead zone between 1 and 1.2. And if you really do have a place that's worth 1.3, 1.4, cool, you're good. That is what it is. But if you've got a place that's anywhere from 1 million to 1.2, if you're not at 999, there's no, like, you're not getting any action.
And it'll be interesting to see what happened with what happens with the rule changes now.
Yeah.
Because that is true. Like that one from 1 million to 1.2, well, just anything over 1 million.
Yeah.
You had to come to the table with $200,000 down.
That's right.
Right. So you eliminate an entire section of the market that may have the income or may have the desire for that property, because those are going to be more unique properties. That's not necessarily just sitting there in Stittsville somewhere, right? Like this is going to be something different. and having to come to the table with a minimum $200,000 down was tougher. But now you're going to be able to, you're going to be able to go to 30-year AM, which is going to help. You don't have to show up with 200 grand anymore,
Yeah.
right? You can get away with doing 100, 150, right? And people say, well, it's still a lot. It is still a lot, but it's way less than it used to be.
Yeah.
Like, so
Yeah.
come December, when those rules kick in, it'll be interesting to see what happens, more so in the spring. But some of those properties, I wonder if that's going to be a different little sweet spot now of how that could go.
That will be interesting. I think there might be, and I think the smart move is to buy now and close after December and get advantage of the lower prices now. And that we talked about that at our office meeting 2 days ago. We'll take a well, we're not taking a break. We're just going to keep talking. But I do want to make sure that I get a chance to talk about Magic Mind before we get too far away with this conversation, because I feel like we can just really go.
we're on the upswing.
Yeah. Wait, stop! Everything stop. You're on the upswing. Now talk about Magic Mind. And how great it is. I'm telling you, it definitely has impacted my my thoughts. I've shared this with you in the past. It's impacted my mind. It's a mental productivity shot, and it's definitely helped my productivity. It's helped me produce more at work. It helps me with showing up to these after I got 3 kids, man, and I was telling someone else I'm awake at midnight, at 2 a.m. and at 4 a.m. for like sometimes an hour, and I'm still able to show up bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, ready to go. My mind is working, and a lot of that has to do with these little gems in a bottle. And it's really cool. I've had some other agents in the zone here say, "Hey, can I give me one of these? Can I try this out?" I'm like, "Yeah, you can try it out, but there's no point just getting one. Here's my code. Sign up, right? RCP20. Magicmind.com/RCP20 gets you these shots for essentially like less than $4 per shot. And you can set it up so that you're signed up and you get 15 bottles a month or 30 bottles a month. If you want to do one every day, that's cool. Or if you only want to do them, days that you're working, you can set it up however you want. But it really does change your brain somehow. I don't know how. There's mushrooms and nootropics and a whole bunch of different things. I gave one of the guys down the hall. He's like a sports guy, like a really I'm buff and I work out and stuff. And he's reading it through. He's like, oh yeah, it's got this and this and this and this. I'm like, yeah, it's got all those things. All I know is that it works. I don't need to know what's in it.
Yes, it does.
Right? But he's like, oh, hey, this is good for this, and this is good for energy boost, and this is good for mental clarity, and this is good for. I'm like, yeah, man, you know all these things. Like, yeah, you know what? I'm reading this. I'm like, this is great. I'm like, yeah, and it works better than a energy drink because it doesn't give you that crash down, right? It doesn't shoot you way up and then crash you back down to earth. Even coffee does that same sort of thing. There's no crash back down, right? It's mellow and it's so anyways, love it. Big fan. Even when Magic Mind was not sponsoring the podcast, I was still getting them because I believe in the value that they have on overall my ability to produce. So that's it.
Yeah,
that's
good.
my take. So yeah, I know you're still waiting on your first well, not your first, but your re-up, I guess we can call it.
I'm still waiting on my re-up for that one. So I got to get that sorted and get back on track.
Yeah.
I'm excited to get back into the groove with it. I'm glad they're back. I'm glad they're back on board.
Yeah, me too, man. It's good. It's good stuff. And then so just to jump back into talking about pricing strategies. One of the agents that I work with here, Ermin, he was asking about, how do we make sure that our clients price it right? He said, I had a client who, when we listed the house for sale, it should have been listed at 8, maybe 850, but they went and they looked at all of the other houses that were available for sale in their neighborhood and like, hey, they're all $1 million. And I think my house is better because of XYZ. So I want to price mine at $1,025,000. And I was like, don't do that. Don't look at what else is for sale because it doesn't matter what's for sale. What matters is what did sell. And he said, look, everything that's sold in this neighborhood sold between 800 and 850. And everything that's still sitting for sale is up here at $1 million or 950 or 975 or $1,025,000. He's like, You can price your house at whatever you want to be at, but if you want it to sell, and again, it comes back to having those hard conversations with your clients, right? Because you don't want to tell someone that. They don't want to hear it, right? They want to hear, yeah, your house is worth $1 million. The problem is, what they really want is for us to do the job of selling their fucking house, right? And if it's not priced right, I'm sorry to say, it's not going to sell, right? If it was up to us, yeah, it'd be worth $1 million, but it's not. It's up to the market, right? We can't make the market pay more money. Maybe we can negotiate like an extra couple, thousand or $10,000 because we're great negotiators here or there. But to make an $800,000 place worth 20% more, not happening.
Yeah, I find it weird when you like I get caught on the rabbit hole, or my wife likes to watch. I like to say it's my wife that likes to watch this, but maybe it's me sometimes. Is
That's
when you start watching like $1 million listing and selling the OC or whatever,
yeah.
and the complete disregard. Like they just pick a number. It's like these people just pick a number. They're like, "Yep, 22 million." They're like, "How is that even real?" Right? And the agents that have to like be like, "No, man, like you're leaving hundreds of thousands of dollars on the table as a commission to be willing to walk away because that's going to sit and just look terrible." It's just a different scale, but it's the same thing. It's the same thing, right? That people are just like, yeah, well, my house must be worth $1 million, you know?
I learned watching those shows. Listen, I'll admit it's also a guilty pleasure. I like watching them; they're fun.
Yeah,
I,
it
I
is.
learned I learned to change my lingo around talking about $1 million plus properties, right? So instead of saying 1,150,000, I'll just say 1150, and it sounds so much cooler, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
it sounds like, oh well, you work in that market all the time, so you
This is
must.
how we talk. This is how we talk. It's
Yeah.
1150. It's
Yeah,
1150.
1150. It sounds a
Yeah.
lot less, honestly. I just finished watching I Love You Man. Great movie. Paul Rudd and Jason Segel. Uh,
Okay.
yeah, in that movie, Paul Rudd is a realtor, and so he's got Lou Ferrigno's estate for sale, and he's going through and he's selling Lou Ferrigno's place, and so it just reminded me of that anyways, yeah, it's on Netflix now. It's recently added, so if you're bored and you like watching funny guys and real estate sort of stuff, then get into that. Modern Family as well, for funny and real estate combined together. The other thing I wanted to hit on was co-signers, and I was hoping you could jump in about this a little bit. Another agent that I'm working with, Rose, she was asking about, hey, you know what? What are we doing if someone wants to buy a house and the other person wants to be a co-signer? Do they need to be on title? What's the impact of good versus bad credit of the second person who's a co-signer? We had a client close on a house, and it was them and someone else who bought it. The someone else was like a friend, and their friend never moved into the house, but they needed that friend's income to qualify, and so that person had to co-sign for the house, and they're also on the mortgage. So 5 years later, they were able to come back off the mortgage, but it affected their ability to get financing on other stuff because they were tied to that other property.
100%.
What have you seen good versus bad versus ugly co-signers in your history here?
Well, the big thing, the big misconception is that you can just get a cosigner, and that there's a separation between the main buyer and the cosigner, and that's not the case at all. So if you're co-signing, you are 100% responsible for that house, and there's no ability to be like, no, like my son pays for it. I'm just on the cosigner, so it doesn't involve me. It 100% involves you, right? Your credit comes into play, your debt load comes into play, all of it. So if you think about it, right, if I'm buying a house and I need a cosigner, okay, my income, my credit, whatever the issue is, we need a cosigner. I need a cosigner.
Yeah.
My cosigner comes on, and now what happens is my cosigner's life and my life have to sustain my new house and their life, right?
Right.
There's no separation. They don't get to pull anything away from that because they're just co-signing. They are a co-owner of the house.
Right.
So all debts, all income, all good, all bad come with it. And that's the big thing. Now there's behind the scenes, you can do things like, hey, will set, if it's mom and dad, for example, we'll have my mom and dad set up as 1% owners and
Yeah.
90, and then I own 99% of the house.
Yeah.
But that's more for a tax implication. If I happen to sell the house while they're still on title because it's not their primary residence, then they get capital gains and rah rah rah. That'll help adjust that and help mitigate that. But that's the thing. So yeah, that's the big difference on there, and it fully impacts them because they own this house.
Right.
They own this house.
And
So,
I guess, yeah, nobody cares that they're only a 1% owner. As far as everyone's concerned, they own the whole house with you.
they own the whole payment. That's more of it. They own the whole payment.
Yeah, exactly.
Whether they pay it or not, it's their responsibility.
I remember
that's the big thing.
I remember when I was in the car business, I was often told by the finance department, because I would find someone who's like, hey, I want to buy a car and I want to get monthly payments, and their credit was not great. And so they would say, hey, I need to get you need to get a cosigner. Okay, great. I'll go get a cosigner. And it said, someone's like, or no, I don't have credit and I don't make enough money, so I'm going to go and get someone else who does have credit and who does make money, and they're going to help me out. And the business manager, like the person, you buy the car and then you go and you meet the finance guy after. The business manager would always say, hey, look, bad credit does not make good credit good. Or sorry, bad credit does not make no credit good. So people would show up and be like, yeah, I got a cosigner. And they show up and they're like, they've got a beacon score of like 400. It's like, oh yeah, I make money and da da da. I was like, who cares? You can't. You're not adding anything to the equation. Actually, what you're doing is you're making it worse. Guy with no credit, go and get a credit card, make monthly payments on it, get yourself credit, and then you can come and buy this, truck or whatever it was. Often it was young guys who wanted to buy a truck, right? Who, oh, I got a friend and they'll come and co-sign with me because I'm going to use the truck for work and they know that it's going to help me make money and da 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 da, right? And so I imagine it's the same thing here, right?
Well, yeah, it's 100%. Like I've had people who are like, hey, if I can't get this on my own, my mom and dad said they'd co-sign. I'm like, cool. Get me all their information. Like, no, they're great. I'm like, that's great, but I need their information, because a lot of the young people don't know what mom and dad really have going for them or not going for them. Yeah. Right. Because for example, this is like the biggest thing we see is you have mom and dad who are going to co-sign, and I'm going through the application with them. Like, yeah, no mortgage on the house, everything's good, great. And then when I get all the actual information, I'm like, what's this $300,000 lien on the house? What's this $300,000 you have? Well, oh yeah, I have a line of credit on the house, but it's not a mortgage. Don't worry about it. First of all, that language drives me nuts. I'm like, that's all I do is worry about it. You don't get to choose what I worry about. That's all I worry about. So no, your HELOC is still a mortgage. And well, there's some people say, yeah, but it's just a line of credit. Yeah, but it's still a mortgage. And there's two ways this works. Some lenders will just take the balance and they'll amortize the payment, and maybe it still works and it's no big deal. Other ones, like there's lenders out there, you have zero balance on your line of credit, they will pretend it's fully maxed out.
Right.
And then now that messes up all the numbers. So mom and dad are not helping the situation whatsoever. Right. In this case, right? So you don't know what you don't know. I do. I will find out and tell you, but that's how this goes. Like, talk about a challenger. The amount of times I've had to tell parents, you're making this worse. And they're like, no, I've never had a problem. I know you don't have a problem. You're just making this deal worse. Yeah. That's all there is to it. Why? And here we got to go through the whole thing, which is fine. It's just, it's not as simple as people want it to be. That's all. Best line of the show, Kyle. Hey, don't worry about it. That's all I do is worry about it. It's true. I know. It's true. Kyle, you don't need that. You don't need that. If I didn't need it, I wouldn't ask for it. Give it to me. Give it to me. Well, it's not a mortgage. It's just a home equity line of credit. It's just a sixth position mortgage. It's not a first position mortgage. I did a post. Like, if you want to know something that's actually, like, I don't even know how they get away with advertising like this. All the Facebook ads are like, man, I really don't want to lose my 1% rate. and I don't want to refinance, but I need to pull equity from your home. Oh, don't get a mortgage, get a home equity line of credit. I'm like, it's the same thing. Same thing, guys. If it touches your house, it's a mortgage. If it touches your house, I don't care what you say. I'm just losing my mind. Loses my mind. Oh,
Tell me
did a
how
whole social media post on it.
Good, good. Well, that's a perfect wrap for the day. As always, guys, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, share this with someone who you think might like this conversation. Kyle's even crying. He's so
upset
about it. You can also download the buyer seller guides below. You can book an appointment with Kyle or I below, and you can also get the description for the reduction and price on Magic Mind, the delicious and nutritious productivity shot all in one bottle. RCP20, magicmind.com/RCP20 will bring you right there, get you the discount, get that into you so that you can be productive and lovely and wonderful like Kyle and I. You can also listen on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, or watch us on YouTube. Thank you very much for your eyes and your ears. And until next time, keep it real.
Collective.